There are more than 57,308,738 square miles of land on Earth. Although it may seem like there is an endless quantity of land, there are only 24,642,757 square miles that can support human habitation, says David Baynie. Land planning developers therefore need to oversee their initiatives closely. Because there is a finite amount of land available, land planning is essential to creating livable space and supporting future expansion. Some important things to think about if you wish to learn more about land use planning are listed below. What does land use planning mean? Engineers examining the schematic. The process of creating and approving a project on land is known as land use planning. These initiatives are frequently governed by a particular governmental body. David Baynie says zoning regulations that limit particular developments to save the environment are based on land use planning. In addition, land use planning fosters community improvement, industry, and economic growth while taking transportation, industry, and economic demands into account. Why is it required? Diverse interests vie for the community's resources in every town. The finest land development that benefits the locals can be facilitated by establishing policies and allocating some of those resources with the aid of land use planning. A proper land use plan is essential to the organization of communities and cities. Water and air pollution would result from industrial plants. Sidewalks would not exist in municipalities. There would be inefficient transportation. The economy would be difficult. Furthermore, environmental harm might occur, making the site unusable for future occupants. Land planning has been around since ancient times, as you may already be aware. With the migration of people from remote tribes to big cities, land use planning became crucial to daily existence. Rome, Greece, Egypt, and Mexico all have remnants of their former land plans. The ancients were aware of the necessity of having designated places for living, working, and shopping. Critical land use planning was required in the US by the 1900s. Inadequate planning causes industrial cities to have greater rates of crime and disease outbreaks. Communities can designate space as necessary for the development and usage of these parcels of property by using proper land use planning. Which 5 land use planning elements do we have? Black metal railings on a white concrete building. Several forms of land use planning apply to both urban and rural areas. Land use planning consists of the following 5 elements. Recreational. This category includes areas used for parks, golf courses, athletic fields, swimming pools, fishing ponds, and playgrounds. Highways, interstates, railroads, bus stops, light rails, airports, and other areas required for transportation are all included in this land. This sort of zoning includes bus and tube stations as well as airports. Agricultural. Crops can be planted and harvested on this terrain. The fields used for cattle, agricultural structures, and other farming operations are included in this zoning. These rules may specify how many animals are housed on the property, what kinds of crops are grown there, and how the region will be treated for pests. This topic includes water rights and other limitations. Residential. This zoning is determined by the permitted density in particular locations as well as the hype around homes. Single-family homes and multi-use complexes are examples of land use planning. Commercial. This Zoning permits the construction of office buildings, warehouses, dining establishments, and other commercial enterprises in a certain region. Various sub-designations within this category impose limitations on the area's commercial activity. Which categories of land use are there? Apart from the aforementioned uses, open land and railway land uses are frequently classified into separate categories. Hospitals, public buildings, and tourism are all given their category, says David Baynie. Developers can control the community resources in these places by zoning these sites. The planning process for land development project completion can take several years, starting from the acquisition of land. The project's initial step is the land use planning procedure. The process of land use planning involves various steps, such as marketability analysis and feasibility studies, protecting land rights, surveys of environmental assessment, making development plans, and getting permit funding. These tasks need to be completed before the project's construction begins. You must rely on a knowledgeable land use planning company if you wish to create a land development strategy. Which three elements go into land use planning? 3 things land use plans must have for them to be effective. They have ideologies, tactics, and politics. Participation, priorities, and community loss are all aspects of politics. Ideology encompasses the inhabitants' needs, interests, and culture. Lastly, technology includes the devices, expertise, and techniques related to land use planning, says David Baynie. The land use planning procedure will be impacted by each of these elements. The land use planning firm must take into account the energy conservation, green technologies, community enhancements, transposition needs, and lifestyles of the residents when creating these plans.